Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today we have entered day 160 of the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, and I've pulled up the general tactical map around Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, and Bakhmut, where you, the viewer, can see the sizable amount of combat brigades that Ukrainian forces have deployed in defense of that area, running from northwest of Sloviansk all the way down towards Bakhmut, and then obviously further east towards Seversk. So if you look at this force construct and you look at how slow things are continuing to move on the ground, the Russians are not really moving forward and gaining large amounts of territory. And furthermore, when you have large amounts of forces like this and such a condensed amount of forces in an area like this, you would think at some point you would see other maneuver operations by Russian forces either to the south or the north, looking to possibly envelop this force. Traditional maneuver warfare that has been the norm for large industrial-sized nations such as Russia, the United States, and what have you. But we're not seeing that. And we're not seeing that, I believe, because of the lethality of a lot of these weapon systems, these modern weapon systems that we're now seeing deployed en masse, and then especially the real-time intelligence that is being provided to Ukrainian forces. Before, obviously, if we go back 20, 30 years ago, even in the first Gulf War, second war against Iraq, and other conflicts, Arab-Israeli conflicts, the tank allowed the mass maneuver of forces, and then obviously additional forces, infantry forces, accompanying those tanks in armored infantry fighting vehicles. But because of the deployment of these new technologies, such as the NLAW, the Javelin, and these are very, very small systems that 1 to 2 men can bring to bear on the battlefield, this is really limiting what you would define as modern maneuver warfare. And if the Russians were to maneuver, such as the earlier part of the campaign, without complete air dominance and air supremacy, and having the ability to sense and shoot targets on the ground, then those maneuver formations were falling prey to just this massive amount of Ukrainian anti-tank and anti-vehicle weapon systems that they have deployed. So now we've almost come full circle to almost what appears to be something more or less as a World War I style of conflict. Not that the forces can't move; it just appears that they are reluctant to maneuver because of the propensity of casualties that they could take in terms of the really advanced weapon systems that we are seeing on the ground. And then furthermore, just to make matters even more complicated for the Russians, is the deployment of some of these more advanced air defense systems, man-portable air defense systems that are being deployed as well. The Ukrainians are effectively able to prevent medium altitude and high altitude operations over Ukraine with the use of those S-300s and other systems that are deployed. But also the low-flying systems, again, are falling prey to these very, very good man-portable systems as well. But it's very well apparent as we continue to watch this conflict. It is more or less a standoff artillery war. And if we harken back to World War I, that's what World War I really kind of became for a lot of the conflict. We did see these mass waves of infantry, and until the deployment of the early stages of the tank, maneuver warfare and pressing forward past trench lines or into trench lines were very, very difficult. And I think right now we are at a stage where some sort of effective active defense, probably the type that the Israelis are using, that have proven fairly effective. Now, how effective they would be against large amounts of anti-tank guided weapon systems, it's very difficult to say. Even the United States is not actively deploying large amounts of these active protection systems for their tanks and armored infantry fighting vehicles. Even the United States isn't there yet. But where the United States has the advantage is the ability to use air power in conjunction with its ability to sense the battlefield. It's the advanced sensory packages that are on a lot of these aircraft of all types, and then obviously satellites and other intel come into play as well. But the Russians, unfortunately for the Russians, they don't have that same capability, or at least we're not seeing it on this battlefield. Do the Russians have the ability to launch precision attacks against targets in Ukraine? Yes, they do, and they are actively doing that. The Russians are also actively using a lot of drones as well in conjunction with heavy artillery against ground targets. But the Russians seem to be having quite significant issues in terms of, one, suppressing some of these Ukrainian air defense systems, especially in western Ukraine, and that is in large part, again, based on Western assistance. So when Russia does launch seed aircraft to suppress enemy air defenses, the United States is immediately tipping off Ukrainian forces, Ukrainian Air Defense Command, that Russian aircraft are inbound through the use of long-range early warning aircraft that the United States has deployed. And it's just really right now for the Russians, it is the biggest issue is they are simply behind the deployment of some of this really advanced technology that Western nations are utilizing. Well, I won't say Western nations, I will say the United States specifically, because right now, for all intents and purposes, the Russians are fighting a proxy war against the United States, especially the intelligence services of the United States. And intel is massive. It is probably more important than many amateur military enthusiasts truly understand. And right now it's very, very difficult because Russia just does not have access to the same sense and shoot capability, and back to the whole sensory package that the Ukrainians possess via direct assistance from the United States. And this is kind of why we're seeing what we're seeing right now. Now, that does not say that it is going to change the course of the war. Ultimately, these frontline formations, these 20 brigades plus that you see positioned between Sloviansk north and running all the way down towards Bakhmut in this somewhat of a defensive salient right now. These forces are being pummeled day and night by Russian artillery and multiple launch rocket systems. So the Ukrainians right now are, without a doubt, taking more casualties as the conflict continues than the Russians are. And it's just a matter of how long can the Ukrainians continue to hold out, and will we see some sort of maneuver operation in other areas to possibly envelop these forces. But again, difficult to say at this point. But In terms of this conflict, we're really seeing a lot of these modern weapon systems coming into play that really, at this point, negate the tank. Now, the tank will obviously, at some point, be fitted or retrofitted with more advanced active protection systems which could defend the tank, or some sort of very, very effective mobile armored vehicle that has the ability to shoot down some of these inbound anti-tank guided weapon systems. So that's kind of where we are right now, and both sides are attempting to adapt and overcome to this new modern warfare, because both sides are seeing things that they just have not seen before. Obviously, the Ukrainians have not seen the amounts of heavy artillery that is being applied, and then obviously the Russians are able to effectively engage rear area elements of Ukrainian forces with cruise missiles and such of those systems, which the Ukrainians are not using against Russian forces, Russian rear area forces. They're able to hit obviously 40, 50, 60 miles into the Russian rear, but not hundreds of miles into the Russian rear, as the Russians are doing to the Ukrainians. Now, when the Russians try to maneuver, obviously, as I just talked about, the big issue is these advanced anti-tank weapon systems, even much more advanced than what the types of anti-tank guided weapon systems that the Russians employ. The Russians have systems that are reasonably effective against armored fighting vehicles, but they are not using fire and forget systems such as the Javelin and other systems as well. And even systems more comparable to the Russian systems, such as the Stunka, are still remarkably effective in this conflict, not just against tanks, but other vehicles, against bunkers, against trucks, against just almost every piece of equipment on the battlefield. These systems are relatively effective against, and it just takes 1 to 2 individuals on an all-terrain vehicle to set up a firing position, and that is what is causing what I believe is some apprehension in the Russian desire to advance, because the Russians have tasted some of these systems in the early stages of the conflict, and continue to have a sour taste from these systems as they continue to be used against Russian forces. But again, just an amazing amount of forces deployed by Ukrainian forces that right now seems to be stifling a Russian advance further towards Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, and Bakhmut. Now, again, we don't know how long the Ukrainians are going to be able to hold out against this withering fire that is coming from the Russian long-ranged artillery. So very, very complicated positional war right now that ultimately I believe that ultimately, because of the Russian ability to continue these long-range artillery attacks, eventually may break the Ukrainian host in the east. But we will have to continue to monitor and see what actually happens as this war continues. Again, thank you very much for joining us today. We will have more very, very soon. Have a good day.